So when we're in the first chapter of the planning and reporting, this is about sustainability management and legal compliance. And the first three criterions are about engagement of the company. And referring again to the toolbar, as you can see now, action plan has also been added here. And this is quite important, and I will come back to this later on in the reporting again, as there is a specific criterion about the action plan. But during Travel Life partner reporting, the action plan is very important, as in this way it is a tool to plan out actions to comply with criterion and work on the criterion that you do not have in place yet in your company. And with that, it's important to know that some of the criterion are non-mandatory to comply with yet, and some are mandatory to comply with, and you will have to have that in your company. And you can see that easily in this second row, which is the compliance obligation. So if you hover over it, you can see it appears as well. And for the first row is the report obligation, but you don't really have to look at that because all the criterion are, of course, mandatory to give an answer to. But the second row is important, as these checks will indicate whether a criterion is mandatory to comply with, so mandatory to say yes to and to provide an explanation. So as you can see, these criterion are all mandatory to comply with because they have a check. But for example, if I go to procurement, as you can see here, there's also dashes, and those dashes mean that it's not mandatory yet to comply with. So as you can see in the screen, if you hover over it with your mouse. So for those criterion, it's okay to answer no if you don't have this in your company yet. So for example, here the company has a policy to measure and actively reduce the use of disposable and consumer goods. If you don't have such a policy in place yet, it's okay to answer no, because that won't affect your Travel Life partner status. So that's important to keep in mind, because if you answer yes, and of course, if you have this in place, that's perfect, that's great, and you can answer yes. But then always, if you answer yes, you would have to give us an explanation, of course, and attach the relevant documents to prove that you're doing this. Otherwise, we cannot approve it. But if you answer no for non-mandatory criteria, that's okay, and this won't affect the Travel Life partner status. But regarding the action planning tool, because that was where we were left off, that will be handy to work on for criterion that are mandatory, but that you don't have in place yet. So in that case, we would like to see, you can answer no and provide an explanation that you don't have this in place yet, or also an explanation why. And you can use our action planning tool, click on the tab, and add a new task to which you can create to work on this specific criterion to be able to have it in the future in your company. So for example, with office paper, you can add a new task, and here it opens the action planning tool. You can write a title of the task here, a description, so what has to be done in detail. And you can select staff members. So if you have added your staff, different staff members in the Travel Life website with their own login name, they will appear in this row, and you can easily click on them, and then they will move to the staff selected, so to the staff who is responsible to work on this specific task. It's also quite important to think of a time frame. So a time frame for which the task needs to be completed. You can indicate that as well here. And we've also added financials and hours. That's, however, not mandatory to put in, but it might be useful for some actions that you plan out. And you can save this, and then the planning task is saved, as you can see. And this can be done for every specific criterion. As you can see, this tab is there for every specific criterion. And that makes it very handy, because if you're done with filling out the whole report, this means that you can automatically generate this action plan, and it will pop up here. So that's very handy from the system, that it will automatically create your action planning tool, and you can download it. And for this example, there's no, well, only this one that I just made is planned out. So it's an easy way to really specifically create actions for a specific criterion and have them all planned out. However, you're also free to use and create your own action plan in, for example, Excel or another program. If you think that's more convenient for you, or you're used to working with that, that's also fine, of course. But it's important to keep in mind that it is mandatory to have an action plan in place when you're working on the Travel Life Partner. So as I said, when you don't comply with a criterion that's mandatory, that's when you need to plan out those actions. Okay, I see that for Sally, your screen has been frozen. Maybe it's helpful if you can refresh over here with this. So refresh the webinar website. Is it still working okay for the rest? Okay, I hope, Sally, that you can see my screen again. And is my screen for the rest still visible? So is this still the Travel Life reporting working for you? Okay, great. Okay, great, then I'll move on. Thanks for letting me know. Right, so we were in the first chapter. So now I've explained this toolbar, and the last tool, as you can see, is best practices. And that might be useful as well during the reporting, because then you can view best practices for that specific criterion. So in this case, regarding a sustainability coordinator, you can see what other companies are doing or what they've answered in the reporting. So that might be quite handy as well. Also, if you're creating your action plan, for example, and you don't have a specific action or criterion in place yet, you can view best practices and you can see what are other companies doing, and can I learn from that? Can I also implement that in my company? So also very important to keep in mind. So those were all the tabs from the toolbar, which you can work with during your planning and reporting. So regarding the Sustainability Coordinator 1.1, these will be your names, but I believe, well, some of you are maybe staff members, but the name of the Sustainability Coordinator should be here. And we would also like to see a job description. So what does the Sustainability Coordinator tasks involve? And if there's a file, so a formal file of the job description, you can add that under File Manager. So that's a last important tool that is throughout the whole reporting quite important. If you want to upload and attach files or photos to a specific criterion, we have this small tab called File Manager, which is also always there under the please upload description. And as you can see, if you click on it, this will open. And in this case, on the right, I have my uploads. So these are the uploads that are already uploaded from my side in this example reporting. And a mistake that's often made by companies is that they upload their files, which is very good, but then they forget to connect them to the specific criterion. So then we don't see the file in the report for the specific criterion, and we will have to look for it in all the files, which is not very handy. And you can easily connect it to the specific criterion by just clicking on File Manager and click on the file you want to attach. So on this plus, and then it will move to the left side. So that means it's attached to that specific criterion. And you can easily disconnect it by clicking on the minus, and then it will move back again. However, if you want to upload a new file, you can do that over here, as you can see on the top right tab, Upload New File. You can either drag and drop files in this box, or you can browse your computer. And for example, I'll upload Travel Life Flyer here. And you can see upload status completed. So that means it's successfully uploaded in your files under your uploads. So that's also important during the reporting to keep in mind, because for quite some criterions, we ask you to upload a file or a policy if you have that. And you can do that with the blue button. All right, so let's move to the next one, mission statements. We would like to see a mission statement which is defined and published on the company's websites regarding sustainability. And you can copy paste your mission statement over here, but we would also like to see the link to the website where this mission statement is published, and you can copy paste that over here. If you would like to have explanation what is included in your mission statement, or what kind of how it should be formulated, you can view guidance and read through it. This might help you, or either go to best practices and see how other companies are formulating this, which might inspire you. Then train sustainability coordinator / team. And here we would like to see which people. So first of all, your sustainability coordinator should have passed the Travel Life sustainability training and have obtained a certificate. And then we would like you to upload that specific certificate under the file manager and attach it here. So I believe that some of you already have this training or passed the training, and if not, I will briefly show you where you can find this, because this is mandatory for the sustainability coordinator to pass, so that to pass this training and pass the exam. And I'll quickly show it to you if you don't know this yet. This is under training, or under learning, sorry, and then under online courses. And here you enter the learning platform, and on the top right, you can select basic training. So that is the basic Travel Life training that the sustainability coordinator has to go through and has to obtain the exam from. That's mandatory. So you can read the training manual over here, and we have an informal exam, so you can practice the exam over here. And we have a formal exam. So that is the formal exam which you have to pass in order to obtain this certificate. And of course, it might be a good idea to let other employees also go through this basic training, as then all of you are sort of on the same level and on the same kind of knowledge regarding sustainability. And it's easier to work together on these kind of issues and maybe together on the planning and reporting. All right, that was quickly the training in between. Are there any questions up until now, or maybe about the learning that I just went through? Okay, so I hope everything is clear until now. And don't hesitate to ask any questions. Right, so we were here, and as I just explained, this criterion is regarding who obtained the Travel Life training. And you will have to attach their certificates, again with the file manager tool that I just showed you. So these three criterions are regarding the social cooperation of your company, where 1.4 is regarding collaboration. So whether your company is actively involved in external forums or working groups which are supportive to sustainability in tourism. As you can see, again, this is a non-mandatory criterion. So if you are not involved in any of those forums or working groups which support sustainability in tourism, then you don't have to say yes, or you can say no. So we would always appreciate an honest answer, of course. That's the best. And then maybe you can provide an explanation that we would like to, but we haven't had any opportunities yet, or perhaps looking best practices in what kind of things are other companies involved. That's always good. The next one is regarding if you exchange your best practices or experiences regarding sustainability. If you share those with other companies or other stakeholders, you can also inform us here. And then perhaps if you have participated in any of this exchange working groups, you can upload documents. And also with exchange of experience, we also mean the best practices over here. So if, for example, for a specific criterion, you think, hey, we're doing a great job on this, and we can share our practice, our best practice, you can add that to the best practice. So you can suggest that, and then we will check it and upload it here. So that's also what we mean with exchange of experiences. You can provide a title, so what are you doing, and then explain what are you doing on this specific criterion and why is it a best practice, and add it over here. So if you're doing that, if you're participating in the best practices tab, you can also explain that to us over here and tick yes. So 1.6 is regarding donations. So whether your company provides support to nature protection organizations or community development, or for example, other local or national sustainability initiatives, so small initiatives, can also be all right, of course. And this can also be done in different ways. So for example, either stimulating staff or client donations, or even like resource donations, so through volunteering of your staff, or yeah, helping to work on community development, for example. And if you're doing that please click yes and provide an explanation what you're doing. So then the baseline assessment, 1.7 is whether your company has a system in place to identify the sustainability performance of the key supply chain businesses that you work with. So, however, this is non-mandatory to have in place yet. Of course, we would like you to work on it. So, if you don't have it yet, you can view guidance. And as you can see, we have quite a thorough explanation of what you can do to create such an overview or to create such a system in place. And an example of possible actions, which is a guideline, what you can do in order to check the sustainability of your key suppliers and partners. And if you have something in place or a methodology to identify their sustainability performance, you can explain that over here and perhaps attach a document which shows that. For baseline assessment, this is mandatory, but by completing this report, so by completing the Travel Life report, that means that you have already conducted a baseline assessment regarding the Travel Life sustainability standards, of course. So you can tick yes and explain that you report to Travel Life. So regarding the sustainability policy, which is of course mandatory to have in place, we would like to see a written sustainability policy which would reflect the company's structure and activities and is supported by the top management team. And in short, of course, the policy aims for a reduction of negative social, cultural, economic, and environmental impacts of the company's activities. And it would have to include employee-related health and safety aspects. So again, if you don't have such a policy written down yet, you can view the guidance and see an explanation how you can write such a policy. And then please copy paste it in the box over here, or upload the policy file if you have it formally written down in the file manager. And then communication. This is communication regarding your sustainability policy. So whether it's accessible to all employees, your suppliers, and the general public. So this is via the corporate website. So in that way, everyone can access it and can read it. If you don't have a website, which is possible, then we would like to see how you communicate this via other means. But then I think usually all of you would have a company website. So please provide the web link where this policy is communicated. So the web link of that specific page on your website. Right. So here we are at the action planning criterions. So I've already explained a little bit about the importance of the action plan. And here there's also a specific criterion regarding this action plan. So we would like to see a sustainability action plan with the targets, actions, measures, the responsibilities, so who is doing it, and a time planning. And then if you read the description, you can see that you can explain your action plan and upload it. And an action plan is always required, even if you're already at a certified level. Because sustainability is a process and you don't have everything in place at once. That's just not possible, and you would have to work on specific actions and specific practices. And if you make this action plan and a year later you can see, okay, which actions have we completed and which not, so which we still have to work on in the coming year. And as we have explained, you can use the Travel Life action planning tool for that, because you can indicate a time frame and indicate who is responsible for it. Or as I've told, you can use your own system. But if you do that, we would like to see those things in there. So the targets, time planning, responsibilities, and that kind of stuff. So it has to be specific. If you have your action planning either from Travel Life or from your own, please upload it here so we can easily review it. So this is something, if you use the action planning tool from Travel Life, this is something that you can probably upload by the end of the report if you went through the whole reporting, of course, because then you have been able to attach tasks and create those the action planning tasks for all of the criterion. Since this is in the beginning of the report, the action plan won't be finished if you arrive at 1.11, for example. So this is something that you would probably have to attach by the end of the process, by the end of filling out all the action planning tasks. And then 1.12 is about the staff involvement for this action plan. So it's about whether the management involves employees in the development and implementation of the action plan and acknowledges them as a driving force for continuous improvements. So you can describe how staff members have been involved in the development and carrying out the action plan. And of course, we can also check to review your action plan and see which people are responsible for which task. So, for example, if only the sustainability coordinator is responsible for carrying out all the actions and implement them, then no other staff is involved. And we would like to see more different people involved to carry out and help with those tasks. So that's what we mean with staff involvement for 1.12. So Ina has asked, can you please show an example of the format of the action plan? Yeah, I can show an example, but as I've just downloaded it from this test account, this would be the example. My action plans downloaded, and it would automatically generate it and look like this. So as you can see, all the themes, so the headers are here, and then since there's no tasks planned other than the one that I've just created, this is like not a thorough example, but you can see how it would look like if, for example, for the criterion office paper type under procurement, who's responsible, start and end, the hours, the financials, and here would be description. So this is how it would look like. Of course, now there's only one action planned, but as you can see, it's quite structured. There's the theme, where does the criterion belong to, what's the subject, and what is the specific criterion. And then there's a specific task explained here, action, what needs to be done, and the people responsible for it. But because of privacy reasons, I cannot show you an action plan from a company that's already in place. But I hope this gives you a little bit of insight how it would look like if you would use our action planning tool. All right, great. Perfect. Then I'll move on and go back to planning and reporting. And as you can see here, because I've ticked the completed, you can see in the green bars which criterion and on which subject you have worked on. So that will become green, and that's also easy for you to see where you are, so where you left off if you leave working on the planning and reporting, and for example, next week go back to it again. So we were in action plan. I hope this is clear because it is an important part of the Travel Life process. But of course, if you have more detailed questions about this, that's completely fine, and you can email us and Chi about it as well. So monitoring and evaluation. 1.13 is whether your company has procedures in place to monitor and evaluate the implementation of the sustainability policy objectives and the targets that you have set. In this description, there's you can see that if you have a formal monitoring procedure, you can describe it in here. However, if you have a formal policy or a formal document about this, you can upload it, and that's great as well. And for example, monitoring and evaluation would be if the sustainability manager or coordinator regularly discusses the progress with staff members, and of course that you use the Travel Life action planning tool to monitor your progress. So to look back if the actions have been carried out in the right time frame, if they're carried out successfully, and if your company is smaller than 25 employees, informal monitoring is also accepted. But then we would like to see a clear description of how you do it. Like, for example, how many meetings a year, what will be discussed during those meetings among employees to sort of monitor and evaluate sustainability objectives. And then staff communication is whether your staff members are updated on the company's sustainability policy and its activities, results, and related developments. For example, via newsletters that are spread amongst your employees, or maybe via intranet channel, an online channel, or other internal communication channels used by the company. So we would like to see what kind of internal communication takes place to communicate about sustainability policy and the activities. So you can also provide an example of a formal or informal communication means. So for example, presentations and meetings, how often do they take place? And perhaps if you have an agenda of such a meeting, please upload it. That would only strengthen your answer. So external reporting and communication. 1.15 is simply whether you report your progress via Travel Life at least every 2 years. So as you can see, by completing this report, you comply with the criterion, of course. So you can just tick yes and explain that you report to Travel Life every 2 years. So the next one would be about public reporting. So we would like to see that you communicate your key sustainability results and you would report those to the public at least every 2 years. So for example, what have you achieved, or what are your goals and results regarding sustainability? And this can, of course, be made public via your company website. So with that, we for example, mean a sustainability report And the current report, as you can see in this example answer, can be the baseline report from Travel Life. And you can also copy paste the link on your website where this is communicated and where this is made available.